Hi, Josh. Thank you so much for being here with us. And it's a pleasure to have you on the Pick Up the Flow podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited about this conversation that we're going to have. But before, the tradition is to let the guests introduce themselves. If you can introduce yourself.
Sure. Josh Cheon. I run Dark Entries Records, as well as Dark Entries Editions, the publishing wing, and the record store, also called Dark Entries, all in San Francisco. The label launched in 2009, and we have over 300 releases on the label. And the store has been there since 2022. And is that good?
Yeah, perfect. Before we dive into Dark Entries, which for me is, it's personal, but it's my favorite label. And I think of it as an institution. I would love to know more about your time growing up, in New York. And also, so your mom was you were in New Jersey at the time. What was your teenagehood like?
Yeah, I grew up in New Jersey, in northern New Jersey, just about 10 miles outside of the Lincoln Tunnel. It was, very suburban New Jersey, very large high school, cement everywhere. And there was a bus stop at the bottom of my street. And for $2, you could go into New York. And so I was going into New York, by myself. My mom was very cool, or trusted me, I guess. I was a very good, nerdy kid. So she would say, okay, I trust you, go have fun. And I would just go into the city and walk around and buy records and explore. And I was working since I was 12, basically, at my grandma's restaurant. I always had a job, so I had some cash always. So I'd always just kind of spend my money on records.
At that time, what music were you listening to?
In high school, I was mainly listening to 80s music. I mean, it was all The Cure, Depeche Mode, New Order, Pet Shop Boys, Dead or Alive, Soft Cell. Those are my favorite bands always. And then, digging deeper and learning more about the bands that kind of were around those bands. Obviously, Joy Division and Bauhaus and Sad Lovers and Giants and all the Setu Javu and Clan of Zymox and Susan the Banshees. These are my favorites off top of my head. And I was also into a lot of the, I don't know what it would be called. I think people are calling it future pop, or I loved V&V Nation, and I loved A-Pop Sigma Berserk. And I would see them whenever they played, and Be Born Beitan and Wolfsheim. And so this was kind of if Depeche Mode had not picked up guitars and they kept making this very synth pop kind of stuff, I always felt, because it was this kind of dramatic vocals and synthesizers. But I wasn't really listening to the stuff on the radio. My brother was really into Nirvana and the Breeders and hip hop. I just was kind of such an 80s obsessed kid in the 90s.
And I also read that your dad had a huge record collection.
He did.
What was can you talk about your relationship with him also? Do you remember one record from his collection that had an impact on you?
He had so many records. He used to DJ at these dances in high school. He had a lot of 45s, a lot of soul 45s. He turned me on when he found out that I liked electronic music. He said, well, have you heard of Silver Apples? I said, no, what's that? And he had the original Silver Apples Metallic album, and he played it for me. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. This was 1967. And so that definitely was a standout album of his that he would play for me.
And I read that you went to Rutgers. How do you say it?
Rutgers.
Rutgers. And also you became a radio director, but you also have a biology degree. You were a radio director right after college, right?
I was a radio director during college.
During college.
Yeah, so I was always having this internal battle of I want to have a record store. I want to do music. I want to have a record label or something music related. I want to work at a record label, but also I should be a doctor. I need to have a quote unquote respectable job and science and research. And I want to help I want to help people. I want to do psychology. I was always kind of like juggling all of these things. So I was majoring in biology and psychology. And then I was obsessed with music, taking the train into New York all the time, still going record shopping, still getting involved with the radio station at college, and eventually becoming the music director for the station in charge of reviewing all the music and contacting all of the promotional companies, submitting the charts to CMJ, going to the CMJ festival all the time in New York. And yeah, it was always a part of my college life, and going to concerts in New York all the time.
At a point when you decided to move to San Francisco in 2006, you worked in a lab while building Dark Entries. How was your experience, like having to do both? Also, like being in a new city, like leaving, the East Coast.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was on the East Coast in New Jersey at Rutgers, going to school, finishing my degree, I was interning at different record labels in New York. So I was always going to class or leaving class early, running into New York, taking the train 45 minutes, whatever, plus working at Beggar's Banquet, which then became, it was this umbrella group that then absorbed Matador Records. So I was working at Matador Records for a little bit, and then I worked at DFA Records. And so I was always kind of like working in the city a few days a week, or maybe like 2 days a week, and then going back to finish my science degree. After college, all the record labels that I had interned at didn't have a position for me, probably because I didn't major in any kind of like business or economics or music. So I said, well, I guess I'll get a job at a lab. So I was working at a lab at Rutgers for 2 years after I graduated, and, just doing science and kind of really repetitive stuff. And so then I went out to Los Angeles to meet one of the promotional companies from when I was doing the radio, because we would have these calls every week to see how the records were doing on charting on the station. And then I just started saying, I don't want to talk about this. Let's talk about like, what bands have you seen lately? And so me and my friend Melissa were really becoming close, just talking about like all the cool indie bands that were like not even getting to be serviced by the promotional company. So I went to go visit her in Los Angeles, and she was very sweet, and I think somehow it came out that I was gay, and she didn't know. And so she's like, oh, if you're gay, you have to go to San Francisco. I said, what? She's like, yeah, you have to go. Just go to San Francisco. I said, okay. I didn't know I had to go. And so I drove up by myself and stayed at a hostel downtown and met some really nice people. And I went back to New Jersey. I put my 2 weeks notice in at the lab, and a month later I was living in San Francisco.
Wow.
And I just was like, you know what? It's going to be 3 months. I have a little bit of money saved from the lab job. I'm just going to like figure it out and take like a little 3-month break. And I was living at an SRO, which is just like a single room occupancy. So it's just like a furnished bedroom. It's kind of like a dorm. You share the kitchen, you share the bathroom, and it's just a small little twin size bed. And I was just meeting people and going out and dancing to disco music and going record shopping and trying to find records and flip them on eBay, just any kind of money, because I didn't have a job. And then I got a job, and then I found a stable apartment. And I remember coming back to New Jersey for the holidays that year, and I was like, I think I'm going to stay.
Well,
my mom was like, no, it's only supposed to be for, 3 months. I said, I think I'm going to stay. I think I'm not done yet. And now it's 20 years later.
I'm glad you stayed.
Yeah.
I read something in an interview that in 2007, you were writing lists and you wrote start record label.
Yeah.
And release some records. And I'm really curious because like in a way it's kind of like you manifested this life that you have now. Do you remember what you wrote on that list?
Yeah, I have it on my phone. I have a screenshot of it, or I took a photo of it. I think it was something like start a record label, release old music and new music from friends, take more vacations, some stuff like that. I think it was just kind of like maybe it was I don't remember what time of the year it was. Maybe it was New Year's. Maybe it was 2006. Just moving to a new city, only having been there, I was 25. So it's a very like, you're going through this kind of like maybe quarter life crisis or something, and you're, still developing what you want and who you are. Your identity is not obviously fully formed yet. Yeah, I was freshly out of the closet. I was exploring, being out and meeting a lot of gay people. I was living with 3 lesbians. It was really incredible just being exposed to so much culture and film and music and going to shows. And it was a really special time in San Francisco. I feel really fortunate to have landed where I did.
Do you remember one band that really had an impact on you back then?
I mean, I love seeing the Soft Moon. Rest in peace, Luis. It was just Luis, really. I mean, he was kind of this force of nature. And I remember going to his first show in Oakland, and we all were just, what did we just witness? It was kind of like how I feel like when people talk about the Velvet Underground, watching this band, and you're just like, wow, I want to go home and like start and do something. And it was really inspirational. And I was lucky enough to go to many more of his shows and to DJ at some of his shows. And that was really, really inspirational and so exciting, because it was kind of fusing the music that I loved as a teenager, all this 80s post-punk, and then kind of updating it for now or then, which was like 2008, I think.
And that was the year where when you started the label?
Yeah, it was. I was already had been thinking about 2007, 8. 2008, I registered everything and made it official and filed the fictitious business name and made it, I was living with Matthew, our mutual friend, and picking his brain about who should I use for mastering and where should I get the records pressed. And my other friend, another roommate that was also in the same room when Matthew left, was my friend named Chris Rolls, who had a record label, Kim Siotic, that I really loved when I was in college. And was really fortunate to meet these really cool people that had already kind of been in the industry for a while. So they were very forthcoming with telling me, their recommendations.
And also, like, you designed the logo of Dark Entries.
I did.
That's so cool. Like, I didn't know. I was really amazed because, like, you, like, there is a thread in your life, like things, come back. Like the fact that you got inspired by the Bauhaus song Dark Entries, and that was for you evident at the time that Dark Entries would be the name of your label. What was going through your head designing the logo? Did you know that 17 years later you would be using it again? Like, what was your mindset at the time?
I mean, I really didn't know much about design. I had a free Photoshop program because I was working at a lab at the time. I was working at UCSF, and I would have to use Photoshop to do like imaging stuff for the lab. And so I had this. I was like, oh, I didn't know anything about Photoshop. And so I remember going to my friend's house, and I was like, I need this to have, and it's Bauhaus. It's Bauhaus, the band, but it's also Bauhaus, the design. So I remember going through his Bauhaus book and looking at designs and getting inspired and kind of like modifying these dots that they had used for another ad. And I was like, oh, I'm going to turn it into a D and an E because this will stand for Dark Entries. And I just kind of like flipped it on the side and made it a D and an E, really without thinking too much. I just kind of carefully cut these dots and put them in a very, without measuring or any kind of like, I don't know, I didn't really use guidelines. I just kind of like quickly did it. It was just kind of that. I think people say, oh, it looks like Megatone Records, or oh, it looks like an entryway and all these things. I think I just was not really focusing on that. I just was turning it into a D and an E and having it be this kind of minimal looking like graphic that was just would print well on a jacket maybe.
Yeah, and to think of it as still being the logo of Dark Entries, it's amazing. Like, because in design, it's really hard to like make something that can last, Like a lot of people change their design or aesthetic, and the fact that you're still using it and you're stuck to your initial vision is very inspiring. I know that you also work with Eloise and you met in 2010. So can you talk about like how did that relationship start? And also, like, how do you work together?
Yeah, I met Eloise on a dance floor in San Francisco. I was DJing this like party with new wave and goth and post-punk and synth. And she came up to me and said, "Hey, I heard your radio show on East Village Radio," because I had come back to New York and I had done a show with Veronica from Minimal Wave. Eloise had been tuning in and listening, and she's like, "I didn't know that there was something like this in San Francisco, and I want to, if you need help in designing, and I'm a design student." And I said, "Oh, I'm good. I got it." Like, I was so just doing everything on my own. I didn't really have any help. I think the first design I did was with Jeff from 11 Pond, who was in the band and did the design in 1986. And the second one I did just kind of using screen printing and burning film and stuff. The third one, my friend helped me. And then for the fourth one, Eloise came on. So she's been with me since, almost the beginning, the fourth release. And she's done everything. And we became really close. It would be so incredible just to go and meet at a cafe and talk about all this stuff and get excited and scan things together. And she came with me to New York, and I guess it was like maybe like a year later, and we were already in New York together, and we were going through an archive of Robin Crutchfield, who was in the no wave band DNA, and also he had his own band Dark Day. And we were going through his archive, and we went to a library, and we were scanning everything. And
Wow.
so it was really cool to like also have these trips to go together to kind of go get source material and inspiration. And it became, a design. We actually did a whole entire zine for that book. It was like a 48-page booklet.
Whoa.
It was like really adventurous. That was like my sixth release. So that's
Wow.
pretty wild thinking back that I was already making like a booklet for my sixth release with Eloise, who was working at Chronicle Books. So she was already making books. So, like, let's do a zine, and then like, let's do a book, and let's do a booklet. It was kind of major thinking back.
You mentioned like going on trips for, like unearthing archives. There is a drive, right, in that.
I mean, it's literally why I'm in New York right
Yeah.
now, which is hilarious.
Like, how do you keep that? What's that fire that keeps you wanna find all these archives and stuff?
I don't know. Maybe it's like this record digging mentality of just this, like, I have to find like all these releases and have to, ever since I was a teenager, maybe even younger, just always digging at record stores and looking on the floor and looking in the bins in the corner and, hey, can I look at that? And always just kind of, I guess, it's just digging. It's kind of all maybe tied together in that sense of, if I really love music and there's no information online, I'll just go down this rabbit hole and I'll spend, an hour or two just trying to find any relative or person related to this artist, if there's any way possible, and pick up a phone, call them,
Whoa.
and try to, hopefully they don't hang up, or hopefully the phone number works, and hopefully I can even find a phone number. And it's kind of, it just drives me. I guess I'm still really excited about it, and it shows.
Yeah, we can feel it through your 300 and plus records, which is amazing. I mean, I think sometimes like when you do something with love and passion, like you don't think about it, and it's just like you're living it's like your life air, like you're breathing for that. Do you have any stories of experiences you went through while trying to find music, like, or meet people who you wanted to work with?
There's many. Obviously, I think, one is maybe the band Velodrome, and they were a band from, a combination of Barcelona and Belgium. It was two guys from Barcelona, and then they had a vocalist who was in Liaisons Dangereux, Krishna, and there was really little information about them online. And I think I had found the guy who wrote the song and had been contacting him for years and years and years, and not really getting any response, nothing. But I think that's also something I realized. I don't really ever like stop. I just kind of like always, every year I'll be like, oh, I have to email that person again and just try to see if maybe this time they'll respond to me, or, pick up the phone and just try to call and just reach out. This Same thing happened with Tom Ellard and Severed Heads, where they constantly were saying no, 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 or not responding. And finally, maybe after also 10 years, okay, fine, you can like reissue stuff. And now it's like, what are we doing next? They're very excited. But yeah, this was Jordi Gruber, was the musician in Velodrome. And I was in Barcelona to DJ, and I had an afternoon free, and I looked up his company online, and I just walked over. I was staying a few blocks, which is perfect, from his office. So actually thinking about it, I was staying in Cardo Pusher's apartment, who's an incredible artist. Yeah, Luis. So I was staying in, Luis's apartment, and I walked down the same street, and I just knocked on this door of this like small little business and said, "Oh, is Jordi here?" And that, in my broken Spanish, and he kind of pops his head around the corner, and he's like, like, you're here. And so we had a coffee, and he was like, "I can't believe you have been really persistent, and okay, like, I haven't thought about this in 30 years. I'll go home and see if I can find the tapes." And he went home, and the next day we met again for a coffee, and he came with a bag, and he had all the tapes, the original real tapes for Velodrome. And we had everything transferred and restored, and yeah, it was really exciting.
Did you have an experience with an artist who you really wanted, but they never, like, do you have not a haunting experience, not like something that you really wanted to come on Dark Entries, but it didn't happen?
Oh, I think there's more of those than, well, not more than, but like there's a lot of those where it doesn't happen. Or, in the very beginning, there was this band from the Bay Area, actually, and I was really excited because they had tons of unreleased stuff. And I met with one of the members, and we had coffee, and we had a contract. And after months, and I went to his house, and I met his wife, and she cooked me dinner, and he played me all these demos, and I was so excited. And then, a few months go by, and he's like, "Hey, you know what? We're going to do it ourselves. We're going to release the music ourselves." And I was so young, and I was so hurt, and I was so upset, like my ego. And I was just, I was like, "Oh no, like you're going to make it look like not like it's supposed to look, because you're going to make it look like all this music just came out in 2009, but it's all like from 1984. And of course the artwork was like not really great and didn't sound that good. But the tragedy in that is that 2 years later, he got into a motorcycle accident and died.
Oh,
and so everything has been lost. And just now I'm starting to pick up that, well, I've been, ever since, even right after he died, I was reaching out to his family and his daughter and trying to get a reissue to happen, because I think he deserves like a proper reissue. So we're in talks now. We're still actually like, it's coming back almost 20 years later, which is really incredible.
Yeah, like when I think about the work that you do, it's like an archaeologue, because you excavate like history, like you excavate all these artifacts and you give them life again. And even Patrick Coley, you unearthed all of his music. Like, how do you view this practice beyond releasing music? Like, do you think about the archaeologist side?
I guess I'm just trying to preserve a decaying media, whether it's tapes or if there's film, video. It's just kind of trying to, all of these formats have a shelf life, and we're kind of getting to 40 years into this, recording a lot of these tapes, and they're not really in the best state. So it's kind of finding them before they're either lost or thrown out or deteriorating. So there's this need to preserve these formats. Well, none of these bands had social media or were able to have the internet. So it's, allowing them to reach so many people all over the world from kind of day one, whereas a lot of them didn't make it outside of their local town or even state. They didn't go on tour. Maybe there was some kind of distribution networks through the cassettes. If it was on cassette, then they were maybe getting picked up through Belgium and passed around. But yeah, a lot of this stuff just was sitting under beds in garages.
I was also reading that I can't remember the year, but you were interviewing 20 of Patrick Coley's friends, and it's crazy that like no one like one person at some point mentioned the porn soundtracks, but like no one before mentioned it. When you think about, you know, what gets remembered and what get buried, like if that person didn't mention it, you wouldn't have known about the porn soundtracks. And I'm really curious about, did that experience made you want to like talk to as much people so you can find what's maybe is forgotten? Like how do you navigate, you know, like where to find your the material?
Well, you know, usually I'll say, can I have all of your tapes, or can I see all of your tapes, and we'll try to review, because sometimes there's so much. You know, I'm working with an artist right now in San Francisco that also did porn soundtracks, and he has thousands of tapes, and it's really impressive, but also incredibly daunting. And how do I listen to all this? Will take me like days and weeks, and I don't know. So we're kind of just tackling it at like from the beginning. But then he's like, oh, he remembers things a week later, and oh, I found this other thing. And it's we kind of have to just take it as it comes with his memory, and thankfully, you know, he has everything, but it's very unorganized. With Patrick, I mean, that was such a serendipitous opportunity where we were presented with all these records that came from John Hedges, who was the owner of Megatone Records after Patrick passed away, because it was Patrick's label with Marty Bleckman. And John was retiring and moving to Palm Springs, and he had invited all of the DJs from San Francisco to his apartment to clean out his records. He didn't want any of them. And since I was part of a collective called Honey Soundsystem that had just started in 2006, and this was now 2007, we were really new on the scene. So we were invited over last. And one of the members of Honey Soundsystem, Ken, who's about 10 years older than all of us, he saw some reel-to-reels and said, hey, can we take those? And we didn't know what reel-to-reel was. I didn't know what a reel-to-reel was. And so John said, sure. Ken took them to his place and was looking through the reels and saw Patrick Cowley's name on some of the reels and didn't recognize any of the song titles. And so he had them transferred. We were listening to them and we were like, what is this? This is like, doesn't sound like Patrick Cowley. This is not disco. It's very experimental and new wave, and it sounds like Devo. And, you know, because we were looking for the next like unreleased disco gem. We were like very on this disco house tip, and, you know, not Devo was not doing it for us, for the dance floor at least. Dark Entries was also still just like a piece of paper in my like dream book. It hadn't manifested itself as an actual business. And so we had a party, and Stefan Goldman came out to DJ for us, and it was not super successful. So we felt really, I guess, sad. So we gave him a copy of the CDs of the Patrick Cowley tapes, and he went back to Berlin and asked us if he could release it on his label Macro. And, you know, I think half of us were like, no, we need to keep this in San Francisco, and this is, you know, our story, and we found these tapes, and it's a gay story, and it should be kept here. But at the same time, you know, we didn't have a way to release it at that point. So Stefan put it out, and it did really well, and I'm glad he did it. To celebrate, we had a party in San Francisco for the release, and this was now two years later. This is now 2009. And so, yeah, I went about and I interviewed 20 of Patrick's friends and families and lovers and roommates and studio mates, and just asked them, you know, everything all. And I recorded it all. I was really lucky. And, you know, this was while I was working at the lab, and this is like on my lunch breaks running into like a conference room and like trying to set up this like audio recorder on my phone, and like just doing it like all in this like rudimentary way. And, you know, I didn't meet probably most of these people. I think two of them were in person, and the one in person that I met, Paul Parker, I had this little old tape recorder from college, and it just the battery stopped in the middle of the interview, and I didn't even check, and we were like crying, and he was crying, and it was an incredible interview, and I didn't even get to capture it. So yeah, and none of them mentioned porn soundtracks. So at this party for the Patrick Howley release on Macro, yeah, these two guys came up to me and said, "Hey, did you find the Patrick's porn soundtracks?" And I said, "No, well, there are no porn soundtracks." So of course, another year goes by. We throw another party for Patrick on his birthday, and they come up to me again and they said, "Have you found the soundtracks?" I said, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. I just interviewed all of his friends. I went back and I asked some of them. None of them had heard about this, so maybe you're confused." And they said, "No, we know that he did these soundtracks. He told us." So I kind of really started looking harder, and then I found them.
But why were you interviewing? You were trying to get to know more Patrick Howley? What was the reason?
Yeah, because there was really not a lot of information about Patrick Howley. He was a very, San Francisco, he's very famous in the sense of like the history of dance music and disco and high energy. But I feel like at the time, there wasn't that much information on Patrick. And I thought, I guess this is what you're talking about, my nature, where I just have this nature to dig and like to find more and learn more. And I said, I want to present as much sides of Patrick Howley from all different views and just record them all. And so at the party, we had these little stations set up in a whole separate room with like videos playing. And there were like all these televisions and all these like little MP3 players just with headphones, and you pick up the headphones and you can just listen to all the interviews I did. So you could I think there were like 7 stations. Okay. And so people could just put on and like listen to people talking about Patrick Howley. So it was kind of this immersive thing that we did. I don't know what, I just was like, I don't know. I just wanted to interview everyone. I was like, I don't know how to do like visual arts. I don't know how to do Photoshop. I can't really like make a flyer. I can't, do music, but I was like, oh, I'll just like interview all these people and that will be my contribution to the event.
Like, have you thought that years later, people like to see all this excitement around his music? Like, did you see it like back then? Or were there other labels as well interested in getting access to his like archive?
I don't think so. I mean, Macro did that one CD release only, and then by 2009, I had Dark Entry. So I was able to, once I found the porn soundtracks, I was able to release them on my label. And then since then, it's just been like, oh, I have a Cali tape. Oh, I have a Cali tape. His brother sent me tapes, and studio mates sent me tapes. And I found tapes on Craigslist in a garage during lockdown. So they keep coming to me. So
wow.
I feel like I'm the custodian.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking of like, he's like the angel guardian of Dark Entries.
Totally.
Like, do you feel like now you know him?
I think so. I mean, I also published his journal, which was very personal, and reading his, his account of moving to San Francisco and falling in love and then falling out and then, running around the city and being so excited about music and so passionate. It's so beautiful. I don't know, maybe it's just like being in San Francisco in your 20s and just like the energy. It's maybe it's always like this. Maybe that's why.
And he was in the East Coast, right?
Yeah, he was in Buffalo, New York.
Wow. He founded the music studio.
Yeah, the Electronic Music Lab.
That's crazy.
City College of San Francisco. It's still there. You can go see all the synthesizers that he made his early experiments on.
Next time in SF, I'll definitely go check it out. Like when you reissue music, it's a craft. Do you feel like now, after 17 years, you have a system? You think that you have like, how do you know when you're digging that like you want to reissue that specific music? Like, what's the...
I feel like it's the same, it's just if it calls to me and if I like how it sounds, it's very, obviously my musical taste has grown since the beginning, where it was maybe a little more narrow, and Dark Entries has to be this like synthesizer, analog music kind of like focus on the dance floor, because I feel like Dark Entries in the beginning to me was I was DJing, I was going out every week. I was hosting parties every Sunday. It was my existence was like going to parties, dancing, DJing. And so I was reissuing all of these songs and releasing new stuff to kind of fit my DJ sets and to kind of fit what people were wanting DJ wise. So it was a very like, it has to have kind of a one dance hit on it, even if it has other stuff. I just was kind of getting excited about dance music and in the lens of like post-punk and like synth pops though. And then, it expanded to more experimental stuff and ambient and new age and house music and techno, and which I guess is all kind of various forms. But I think, now porn soundtracks are taking up so much of my time. It's something I never thought that I would be 17 years in and just like discovering all of these incredible soundtracks for porn films.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like to just as I was telling you to like go back to your Bandcamp and just like step back and see all of the reissues and all of the releases. And it's like, I know that people tend to box labels or like, but you like what guides you is just how you feel, and it's really inspiring and fresh. Like, I'm curious to know more about your experience like during COVID, because like it was a difficult time. Like you lost your mastering engineer. Can you tell us about how your experience was as a label?
Yeah, it was I thought it was the end. I mean, it was all these signs were pointing to my pressing plant shut down as everything shut down, but my pressing plants were still kind of up and running. And then when they stopped, I was like, oh, well, if I can't make vinyl, what am I going to do? And then a few months later, my engineer suddenly dies of COVID, and it just like destroyed me. And I was like so sad. I still get really sad about it because I love George Horn. He was a master and taught me so much. He was really special. And just so fortunate to just go and sit in on so many sessions and bring artists to sit on and listen to him master and watch the lacquers being cut on his lathe.
Was he in SF?
He was in Berkeley.
In Berkeley, oh,
yeah,
nice.
at Fantasy Studios, which was such an incredible building, also gone now, but it was such a little trip in time to walk in and just be, wow, this is where all these amazing records were cut, and to see the plaques on the wall and the studios. And it was such a trip. And George's little mastering room was so special. So yeah, all these things were saying, well, I don't know. This is good. I've done everything, or I've done as much as I can. And this is, I'll go back to science. I had already returned to the lab. I had left the lab in 2018 to focus on the label and to DJ. And then I was going to go back in 2019 because I had enough of that life. And then COVID hit. And then I had to wait a few months. And then I was begging my old boss for a job. And so I actually went back to the lab. And I was working in the lab. And I was like, I'll just do the lab again. I'm back in the lab.
So what is in the lab? What do you do?
I was doing like research, like clinical trials with stress and aging. So kind of like people that are very stressed come in, we take their blood, we analyze it. We're looking at like the telomere length, which is like the caps of their chromosomes, which like deals with like cellular aging. And then there's interventions that are introduced, like exercise and change in diet, meditation. Then they'll come back in 6 months and we'll take their blood again and see if there's changes in their telomeres and telomerase, which is the enzyme. And usually it's always a positive correlation between these interventions and an improvement in their health. So it's kind of like biological pathways to psychological health.
Do you see a connection with dark entries somehow? Because I feel like being immersed in that world, like that work, and then you have dark entries. Do you see a link?
Huh. I don't know. I guess it's the analytical brain of just like analyzing things. And I don't know. I felt like it was really two different sides of my brain, but maybe there is something I don't see as an outsider. I don't know. I always felt like, okay, I would go to the lab, like put on my lab coat, do my experiments, be very focused. And almost kind of helped me like tune out stuff, but it also allowed for me to, I just got an idea. I have to go write this down. And I would write it down, or I would take lunch breaks and I would go to Berkeley and cut my records. And then I would come back and be like, okay, I'm back. I mean, I was really squeezing dark entries into every possible moment of my like 9 to 5 kind of day. It was not okay, but my boss was very cool and she let me do that for, pretty much the whole time I was at UCSF.
And you said 2022, you opened the shop?
Yeah, and that's when I quit the lab again for the second time. I was like, okay, no more lab. I'm going to just work at the shop. The pressing plant had reopened. Everything was kind of back in more of a swing. And so I have just been at the shop since, 2022.
So the shop is at 910 Larkin Street. How did you find the spot, the location?
That was part of the losing everything. I had lost my pressing plant, I had lost my engineer, and then I lost the space where my office was. I had been at this above a record store across the street from my current record store for 8 years. And it was kind of, the home of dark entries for 8 years. And they were not doing enough business during COVID. So they got out of their lease 2 years early and I didn't know where to go. I was kind of blindsided by it all. I thought I would be there for a while. And I just started looking around the neighborhood, looking for rent signs. I didn't know how to find. I thought I was just going to, I was like, I'm just going to put everything in storage, stop the label, and just kind of like sell off my old product and just kind of focus on the lab. And then I found this boarded up tattoo parlor across the street. And I was kind of trying to look in, and it ended up being the perfect space. And even at that moment, it was just going to be like an office, a storage room. It was not going to be a record store. It was, if people want to come pick up records they ordered online locally, you can come pick them up from this space. But I was going to kind of keep it how it was. And I think a few months after having the space, Mike Servito, our dear friend, came out and was sitting there looking at the space, and I told him I'm just going to keep it as this kind of office. He said, "Are you kidding me? You need to turn this into a record store." I said, "No way. I'm so depressed. I'm like, I lost everything." And he was like, "No, this is the evolution of a record label. You need to have a record store and a physical space for people to come." And he really pushed me. I was really not having that vision at all. I mean, ironically, I probably wrote down on a piece of paper when I was like a teenager, open a record store. And I just couldn't access that memory. And because I always dreamt about having a record store.
I mean, this show is about like inspiring people, like finding their career. And it's so difficult because everything is changing. Like opening your own business, it's like this big jump. Like it's very scary, and you did it. And what have you learned like from like running the store? Like how has it been so far being like a business owner?
It's like, it's a dream, but I love being there. I'm there every day, really. And I think that's the thing though, because I have this obsessive nature, it's now turned into the record store and like having incredible records in the bins. And I want to have all this, like, I write all these little notes and these descriptions on every record. And it's like my goal to have all of the records, which thousands of records, have all of these little writings, and I do all of them, and it takes time. And sometimes I just put records in the bin because I don't want to do that, but then I have to go back and find them and add the little notes on it. And sourcing records for the shop has been interesting. How to buying collections and that whole side of things. It's just me. I do everything with the shop, with the record label. So it's
like what's let's say tomorrow you're in SF. What's your routine?
Wake up very early, do immediately have coffee, and just start doing emails like immediately, just working. It's like emails, trying to figure out what to post on Instagram is always like anxiety sometimes. And then I'm like, oh, it's 8 o'clock. I don't have anything yet. I need to have something because it's like 11 o'clock in New York and it's like 5 p.m. in Berlin. And that's how my mind thinks. It's like really not okay. some days I'm like, you know what? It's okay. You didn't post anything. Like, it's okay. I feel this need to, yeah, social media has definitely like been taking up a lot of my like, not a lot, but like I feel like that's some part of my day is like, okay, it's 8 o'clock. I didn't post anything. Now it's like I have to move on because I can't like stress about what to post. I don't have some days, some weeks I make a whole list of like, okay, Monday this, Tuesday this, and I try to get ahead of it. But I've done that like for 3 weeks, then I just stopped doing it because I just can't think that way.
Yeah, I love like how on your Instagram you also, I mean, you post things related to the label, also like historical footage. Like it's always like informative, and I think it's like another way to unearth, like archives. And it's a job also, content creator. Like it's crazy. It requires so much work. How do you manage the different hats?
I just do it. I don't know. My mom had 3 jobs when I was a kid. She would bring me to all her jobs. I would watch her hustle. Maybe it's something I learned just to like, she was a single mom. She had 3 kids. She was like going from teaching to cleaning houses to teaching again, a different program at night. And then, just kind of, I don't know, I was delivering newspapers. I think we always were just in this very like work kind of like, which I don't know if, I mean, it was, we had to because it was like, we didn't want to like lose our house, but also like now I still feel like this drive probably comes from that drive of just like work. I'm at the shop all day. I leave my house after I hopefully post something on Instagram, and then I'll go to the shop and I'll just work. I'll do my little notes. I'll pack all the orders. I do all the distribution, all the fulfillment, inventory, trying to get records in for the shop. And then also, working on the next projects and liner notes and artwork and hanging out with friends, hopefully, eating, cooking, meal prep, all this stuff. It's...
So I feel like when you have this kind of like a very discipline, structure, do you have like something that you love to do, like totally disconnected from like music or like not to recharge your battery? Like what do you do? Like
I love eating. I love going to like my friend's restaurant. Like I used to go every week, and it's just like a pre-fee 4-course meal. It's like French food. It's so good. It's like soul replenishing. And I just sit there and I don't talk about anything related to the label. We just like enjoy, and it's like, it's very nice. I just feel like it's like my time. I guess I go alone and just like, it is kind of like this really beautiful like recharge. It's called Majote, and they're in the Mission, and they're my favorite. But eating, even in general, meeting up with friends and having like a nice meal, even grabbing like tacos, anything around food, I always feel like is like a little bit of a recharge, and just kind of like slowing down and just enjoying this moment, like not being on the phone or in the shop, or it's kind of, I have to like remove myself physically from the shop because I'm there like all day, every day. So
you probably now know all your neighbors.
Yes.
Like, do you have like people who come recurrent customers?
Every week, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's so cool. It's like you have a physical, I mean, if you're listening to this interview, go to Josh's store, and it's so nice. It was really nice being there last December. I know that you're a Cure fan. I've read that your dream release has been the Cure demos. Is it true?
The Cure at this point, I feel like I can't really, they've released so much of their back catalog with their demos, which is incredible. In 2006, they started releasing, maybe even earlier, they started releasing all of their early albums from the beginning with like bonus material. And it's been incredible to have all of that. My dream reissue was Q Lazarus, Goodbye Horses. That was something I'd been working on since before the label even started. I was already trying to research the song and learn, and that I wanted that to be the first release on the label.
The movie, like inspired you to do biology, right?
It's true.
It's crazy to like see the connections. But how was it? How did you find her?
Well, first I found William Garvey, who wrote the song. He had a website. This is back in 2007. I sent him a few emails and never heard back. And then he passed away, sadly. in 2010. And so someone was cleaning out his computer and found this email from me and responded and say, "Oh, William just passed away. This was his dream. He was been sick. He probably didn't, couldn't respond. And so like, let's, do something. And here's the here's his sisters who control the estate and kind of like talk to them." And my father had just died, so it was kind of like, oh, maybe he died in 2008. Maybe it was like right around 2009. It was around the same time. Anyway, so it was like I had just lost my dad. We were being like, it was really emotional, and I don't know. I just was like 27 and didn't have the same thing about, oh, just get on a plane and like go find tapes. It was like, no, I'm working at the lab every day and like don't have this this drive like that. So it took me a long time to get out to get the tapes. And everyone thought Q had passed away. We didn't know because she had just been hiding in New York this whole time.
Yeah, I watched the documentary. It was really moving, like just at the end. And so were you in touch with her son?
Yes. By the time I learned about the documentary being made, way before it came out, and then I was in touch with the filmmaker and almost in touch with Q, and she was aware of my reissue, and I was going to come out and meet her in 2021 and then again in 2022, and then both times it didn't work out. So I just had to I did everything with her son after she passed away.
Yeah, that release was, I think, one of my favorite, and it's so amazing that you have this archive, but also like to go back quickly to reissuing music. It's amazing that you democratize, like access to records that on Discogs are really expensive. Was it something that you thought of with like your reissuing practice?
Oh yeah, I mean that was such a important part of deciding, oh, this record is impossible and only like 4 people have it, and it's never been sold, or I think that was the ethos of Dark Entries in the beginning, of like we're making these really expensive or impossible to find records affordable and accessible for you. Now I think it's maybe that is not always the first like thing that needs to be there in place, but it still was a huge factor. Now, I just did Anne Clark, Our Darkness. Not the most rare record. It's still, ironically, I don't think I mentioned this press release, but it was the first time I ever was released in the States. It never had a domestic release. So I guess it is interesting. It never was released here. But so now it's kind of also a blend of like really important documents of that scene and that time that I think need to be more widely accessible in a store and not just on the secondhand market or on Discogs. Because you don't even walk into a store and you can't find Anne Clark used, even though it might not be that expensive online. It's kind of also just like what I think are essentials for like DJs or just for home listening, and what I want people to have accessible and affordable.
Is there one release coming soon that you're really excited about?
Oh, I can't even tell you. There's one that everyone is going to not believe that this is real, because when it was presented to me, I literally fell off my chair. It was actually recorded in New York in the 80s. It's been sitting in a closet for 40 years.
Whoa.
No one has heard it. No one except the person who made it. And the person who made it is a very, 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 very famous composer who a lot of people know and are going to be shocked when they hear a very different side for what they're usually known for, what they're really famous for. It's also very gay, which I love.
Nice. I'm excited.
Yeah.
What's next? Can you share some of your upcoming plans or anything that you want to share?
Yeah, just have a lot of releases scheduled for this year. It's kind of like already June, and I'm like planning out till next June. I mean, it's really just, it sounds so like obnoxious, but it's like I just have so much stuff, and I'm still like really excited to get out, and things I've had for years sitting Some of it's finally coming out. I'm doing another compilation of gay electronic music called Deep Entries, and that's coming out in December. And I've been sitting on some of these songs for a decade, and I'm so excited to get them out and people to hear them. There is so much stuff coming. I'm trying to figure out like what. There's obviously more gay porn soundtracks coming in the fall. I'm really excited about the Black Meteoric Star album that's coming out in September. Also, the Pure Motorized Instinct record comes out this Friday, and I'm so excited about it. It's really beautiful, kind of Twin Peaks soundtrack cassette stuff from 1993. Yeah, and new music, always the new music from Edgar, who's a local
Yeah, it's so good. I love the
local
album.
musician in San Francisco that I just saw perform at like a divey gay bar, and I was like, "Wait, can I put out your record?"
Yeah.
It was like I felt like an A&R scout. I was like, can I put out your record? And so I just asked him after seeing him perform twice, I think, and I said, "This is incredible. We need to put something out." So it's his first album. I'm really excited.
Well, thank you so much, Josh. This
Thank
was
you.
fun. And yeah, I'll make sure to include all the links. And thank you.
Cool. Thank you for having me.